Hi, my name is James Walker, Dr. James Walker. And if you've watched a lot of videos here before, you might be puzzled. Wait a minute, who? And doesn't look right, sure as hell don't sound right. What's going on? Okay, so some explanation. Yeah, it's been a while since I made a video, and last time I made a video in September, I would have been wearing a white hat. I had longer hair, and I didn't have this, great manly beard I've grown since then. And I was probably a lot happier at the time. And I would probably have been speaking in a different voice. Sort of really bad Vincent Price impression. No, I'm showing, and I would have called myself Dr. Jimmy. But Dr. Jimmy is really only a character that I play in these videos. That's not to say that I'm not that person, because I am that person, but that's not my real voice, and it's important for this video to be myself as much as I can. So I'm not putting on a show. I'm talking to you like me talking to you. I don't mind the cough. Not sick. I have a cough that's a symptom of my blood pressure medicine that I take because to keep my health, to keep my blood pressure down. But the symptom, the side effect of that is a certain cough, which alarms people nowadays due to other situations, which I'm sure you are all aware of. So let's not go into that. But it's been a while since I made a video. It's been about 6 months, I think, back in September of last year when I did my last one in Happier Days. And I'm here to talk about something that happened since then. And something that, that started way before that, really, because I've never really talked about this so much. In my personal life, I've kind of avoided talking about it, and there's reasons for that. And so I do have to talk to you as me, James Walker. So that's who I am. All right. So it's March 30th today. And we'll go back a little ways through time, shall we, to March 19th of 1994, over 26 years ago. I've made no secret about the fact that I am gay, and I've talked a little bit about that in the past. No problem talking about that. But back then I was 31 years old and working for Walt Disney Company. I've talked about that a few times. In fact, if I can pull up a visual aid here, go to my photos and my camera roll, and I can show you, not from 1994, but sometime in probably either in the 90s or early part of the 21st century, sometime around the late 90s, or this was me back in the day at Disney, working at the Adventurers Club. I also worked the Comedy Warehouse, and I was in that capacity as a much younger, thinner man. At the time, no doctor. At that time, just me working at Disney. And at that time, I lived with some roommates, one of whom was another person who worked at the same clubs with me at the time. I'm not going to mention his name. I just like to refer to him as the lying little tramp sometimes, because that's an accurate description of the person. He was kind of cute, and I had a little bit of an infatuation with him, but, totally unrequited, and he was aware of it and used it to his advantage, because that's what he did. He was a user. He wasn't a good person. He liked to think he was a good person, but he was a bit of a user and manipulated people to get what he wanted from being cute. And very often, liked not having to pay for anything himself, basically. Got out of rent, got out of, buying anything. He had no car of his own, so we carpooled. We had the same days at work, conveniently set up that way because, I drove him to work and back every day. So, he liked to go out and drink a lot. He was probably an alcoholic, a bit of a user, abuser, douchebag in so many ways, but he wanted to go to a very notorious club in Orlando called the Parliament House. You might have heard of it. It was a bit wilder back in that time, probably cleaner, amazingly enough, and yet still lots of stuff went on there. Mainly he wanted to pick up guys and have fun, get drunk, and usually if we managed to get out of work a little early, we would take off normally to a local bar that was like right on Hotel Plaza Boulevard, right next door, so we could get a few drinks before we went home. But no, this time he wanted to go to the Parliament House because he basically wanted to have other kinds of fun as well, apparently. We'd been there the night before, the 18th of March, and I had not had a good time, but he wanted to go back. And there was a leather event going on at that time. That was a bigger deal back then in Orlando. And he wanted very much to go there, and he needed me to drive him there and probably buy his damn drinks. So he was insisting, and I didn't feel like it. It's like, no, I'm tired after work. Let's just go back home. If you want, I'll drop you off, because God knows he'll be there all night, and I'll pick you up in the morning or whatever. And he was like, no, you gotta come. And it's like, oh, just leave me alone. And he was trying to get me to go, and so he said something that turned out to be very true, although he didn't mean or intend it to be true. It was just him trying to manipulate me into doing what he wanted. So, hey, if you just want to pick up a trick, you can do that anywhere. At least he could. But if you want a husband, you got to go to the bars. Now, he didn't actually think that could possibly happen, because after all, he thought he was the shit, and he thought I was unattractive. You saw the picture. I wasn't all that unattractive. I was actually quite good looking back then. If I may be a little bit unhumble for a moment, I didn't look bad. But he was like, no, you have to come. And so he got me to go along with it, and put on a ridiculous outfit that was not leather at all. He thought he was, he thought he knew all this stuff, but oh God, real leather guys probably looked at him as, look, who is this ridiculous twink trying to look leather because he has a vest, but he's wearing a red and white polka dot sailor cap that looks like it's meant for little girls to wear, and it was. He picked up in a thrift store, and he thought that was somehow butch. Ridiculous. But we went directly to what's called the back bar, or the Western bar. I think it's a bear bar nowadays. I don't go there very often anymore. But back in the day, he went up to the bar and ordered some ridiculous too sweet cocktails that had an obscene name. I think they were called Cowboy Cocksuckers or something like that, because it was like Southern Comfort and Bailey's, and some sort of variation on some other naughty named drinks. But so he was getting these ridiculous drinks, and I was just not comfortable and wanting to go home and go to bed when I looked across the bar, and I have read about this sort of thing. I've seen it in movies, but in real life, I never dreamed that something like this happened in the real world. I looked across the bar, and there was another gentleman there, an older man, who looked up at the same time. Eye contact, and bang! Oh, it was like being struck by lightning. It was electricity, just eye contact, and suddenly it was like telepathic. You are mine. And it was just, he just, both of us, just something. And he gets up and comes right over and pushed the little guy out of the way, who's like, what's going on? And, you know, we're there. And you know, and the little tramp comes over with the cocktails going, and he says, tell the Nelly guy to leave. And I said, bye-bye. And that was it. Yeah, we began dating, and it was about a month later. We were in Cocoa Beach, of all places, on a weekend. Went to a party at a friend's house, apparently, and there was some little silly bar in Cocoa Beach. I don't know if it still exists. It's called Bar, 3 words, Bar Bay, B-A-Y, Dos, like Spanish for two. Bar Bay Dos, pun, right? Silly. And it was one of those, you know, in a place where there's the only gay bar in town, so it covers everybody from leather guys to drag queens to lesbians to who knows what, and therefore doesn't really adequate for anyone. But it's just a little dingy place, kind of a dive. And there was some lady who was selling some homemade silver jewelry, and she had like this little rings that had like 5 or 6 little silver thin rings that were interlocked, like intertwined, and they were cheap. And he just bought these little ring and turned to me and put it on my finger and said, you know, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. It was like, okay. No ceremony, nothing like that. From that moment forward, I considered him to be my husband. His name, first time I'm saying it out loud on a video, was Bill Granzik. Bill Granzik. And he was quite an impressive person. Never talked about, he didn't want to be talked about in my videos, but that doesn't matter anymore. I can talk all about him now. Let's see, can find a picture of him. This picture is not recent. He did not look like that when I met him, but that gives you an idea of how utterly good looking he was throughout his entire life. That was him as a younger man. There's a picture of him probably in his 40s, at which point he was wearing a wig. Oh, here's a picture probably in his early 30s. That's the woman he wrote a book with that was a best-selling book, The Parent Test. There's a poster for it on the back. Her name was Ellen. A lot of people thought they were a couple, but they were never a couple. Here's him in more recent years at a party, a New Year's Eve, celebrating it with astronaut Mark Kelly and his wife Gabrielle Giffords. 1 week later, she was shot. Thank God she survived. But there are people that we like to go to New Year's with. Back in the day, here's a holiday in Venice. That was Bill. That was, oh, here's a picture of him with another astronaut friend. Actually, he was the head of NASA for a while, Charlie. Let's see. Oh, here's a picture with Estelle Parsons, the actress who used to play Roseanne's mother. Here's a picture at Universal during Mardi Gras. So he was a few years older than me. He was about my age when I met him, maybe a couple years younger than I am now when I met him back in 26 years ago. And last year he was 80. Oh, so he's about 24 years older than me, but we hit it off, and my God, my life completely changed after that. I still worked for Disney for a little bit, a few more years, but didn't really have to because, you know, I moved out of that crummy little house into Bill's wonderful house in Winter Park, where I still live today. and I have traveled around the world. He took me to London, Paris, Munich, Berlin, uh, Mumbai. Went through India, went to Agra, went to the Taj Mahal by the light of the moon. Went to China many times. He would work in China. He was on the faculty of Peking University. We would go to there quite frequently, Great Wall, and saw all the wonders of China in real life, not the Disney movie, but the real stuff. Went to South America, Buenos Aires. We went, all over this country, from New York to Washington, D.C. Went to Clinton's inaugural ball in 1997. We went to Chicago, all over. Wonderful adventures with him that I could never have done on my own. He encouraged me to continue my studies, got my master's, got my doctorate. He himself was a PhD and was one of the leading authorities in the field of human sexuality. Google William Granzik. You'll be amazed at what you find. He was quite brilliant. That was my man. That was my Bill. And we, earned my own degree, and eventually I got to leave Disney and pursue my own career in the same field, teaching at the academy with him. Had a wonderful, wonderful life together, over a quarter century together, over 25 years together. But he wasn't young. He didn't get any younger. And he had some health issues that became more prevalent in the past few years. And back in 2018, after our last overseas trip together, which was to Munich, and we had a wonderful time, but we came back and he started having some real serious difficulty. He couldn't sleep lying down anymore and had to move into either sleep on a chair in the living room and eventually that got better, and he could sleep in a bed, but he couldn't sleep in the bed I was in, so he had to sleep in something that was lower to the ground that he wouldn't fall out of. He had no strength or energy at all, couldn't even walk from one side of the room to the other without getting exhausted. It was unable to travel anymore. We always had these plans, well, we'll go see some shows in New York, maybe we'll go to Canada. We never really went anywhere except for Charleston by train around New Year's every year to meet all the interesting famous people we would party with every New Year's Eve. But like I showed some of those pictures, but other than that, he was limited because he had congestive heart failure. And I knew when that happened in the summer of 2018 that most people, when they're diagnosed with that, have maybe a year to live. And so I was afraid of the worst. But he seemed to rally. He got stronger. He could sleep lying down. Things were getting better. He would still go to Fort Lauderdale on the train once a month, take care of some school activities there, meet with students and such, usually for a couple days, and come back. He seemed fine. He seemed to be doing better. And it was over a year. It was, now in the autumn of 2019. It had been well over a year since the diagnosis. I thought maybe he's going to pull through. Some people have been known to live for several years after they get diagnosed with heart failure. So I was being hopeful, especially since he seemed so strong and better than he had been that he was telling me, yeah, go to horror nights. I stayed home a few nights. I went as many nights as I could, and I went quite a few nights this last time, but I still several times stayed home and told Bill, I can't go because I have a cold, or made up a reason, I need to do some work on the car before I drive over there, maybe get my tires checked, that kind of thing, because he seemed to have a bad night, and I didn't want to leave him home, because if I told him I was staying home for him, he'd be like, Go, 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 get out of the house. Don't stay here for my sake. Because that was the way he was. Very considerate. But I stayed home when I could, but he didn't seem to have any trouble when I was gone. And, I always made sure he had food, and so I got back before the night was over, and everything seemed fine, and he was fine through the end of horror nights. So I thought, no problem. And then after that, everything was wonderful, and there wouldn't be any trouble, and he would be around for, so it seemed like he was doing wonderful and doing better, and I wasn't having any qualms. But he only lived 2 weeks after horror nights ended. It's very hard to talk about even now. It's been over 4 months. But it was sudden. It was quick. I heard a noise in the early morning. He would get up early in the morning, and so I would still be in bed. And apparently he got his coffee and some apple pie and sat down and was messing with the television remote, trying to get it to work properly, because Spectrum sometimes is a pain in the ass. And then suddenly fell over, and I heard a noise, and I came running out, and I figured out what happened, because the pie, half-eaten pie, was on the table. The remote was under him, but he seemed to still be alive. He was breathing. He was breathing normally. First thing I did, because I saw he'd been eating breakfast, was to see if was he choking. But he was breathing normally. But he seemed not to be conscious. His eyes were wide open, but I spoke to him. He didn't respond to me. It was like he wasn't in there. I don't know if he had a stroke, what had happened. He had a heart attack. He wasn't showing any signs of this. I thought maybe he was choking, but he wasn't choking. I wasn't sure. Then suddenly he wasn't breathing. And there was no sudden, no gasp or anything. Just suddenly I realized he's not breathing anymore. I was on 911 in a heartbeat, and I had him, I was doing CPR rapidly while I was talking, because there's the hands-free thing. And I'm talking to the guy, and, he wants to make sure I'm doing it correctly. And I was trained to do this a long time ago in the Air Force, and also Disney trained me, took classes there, so I knew how to do this. And again, I was sure there was nothing caught in his airway, because when you're pushing down, you can hear the air going in and out. And I'm working on and working on. Next thing you know, the paramedics are there. They took over, and they're doing everything they can. And then they rush him off to hospital. I think that's a good sign, but they never revived him. From the moment he was in my arms and he stopped breathing, neither my work or the work of the paramedics in the ambulance, when they get him to the hospital, they shocked him, they defibrillated him, nothing. He was blue by the time they got him to the hospital. So, as far as I'm concerned, he died in my arms that morning when he stopped breathing, but officially, time of death was at the hospital, even though they never revived him. So, that was it. And I was a mess for quite a long. I'm still a mess, but I'm getting better. This has been. There is so much red tape, so much horseshit you have to go through in this, and it just, they don't tell you have to get like 17 death certificates, long form and short form, and to send them to everybody. I mean, he's obviously dead, but you have to prove it every time you do anything like change a car title or Social Security, anything you have to contact, you have to send them an original, not a photocopy. And the apartment in Fort Lauderdale, it took me months just to be able to go in there. I mean, I'm the only heir. There was a will. We were legally married. There's a will that also names me not only the sole beneficiary, but as in Florida they call it special representative, but it's the executor everywhere else, whatever. And I mean, it took forever. I had to send them a photocopy of the marriage certificate, for God's sakes. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. Um, we, as far as I was concerned, when he put that ring on my finger in, it was April 24th, 1994, in that little bar in Cocoa Beach. A month later, in May, he replaced it with a gold wedding band that had belonged to his father, and I wore that for a long time. But on in April of 2014, basically our 20th anniversary, about 6 years ago, almost 6 years ago, uh, we went to New York City, and gay marriage was legal there at that time, and also you didn't have to live in New York to be married in New York at that time. Still, um, so some places you have to actually live in the state where you get the license, but at that time New York was an open place, so you could get married there from somewhere else. So while we were there, he said, "Let's get married," and I said, "Okay." And we went to the Manhattan court clerk in downtown, right under where the World Trade Center used to be and the Freedom Tower is now. And that kind of always gets me a little verklempt. You know, another aside. We had reservations to, we had made booked a trip to New York and had reservations to have a wonderful meal at Windows at the World on the evening of February 14th, 2002. See, this was going to be our Valentine's meal, and of course, they had to be booked months in advance. All of that had been set up, and then 9/11 happened, September 2001. So obviously, we couldn't go to the restaurants, we couldn't go to the towers, but we still went to New York in February 2002 around Valentine's Day, which was kind of nice because we were at the, what's that, Park Lane, whatever it's called, the one that Queen of Mean used to live at. What was her name? Helmsley? Yeah, she used to live there with her evil little dog, Trouble, and we were actually on the same floor with her. You could see the people who were hired to walk her dog, and sometimes you could hear Lenora yelling at them. I didn't see her, but she was scary. I think she went to jail after that, but it was right out, right across the street from Central Park, and that was the month when Christo put up all those orange gates in Crystal Park, that sort of saffron fabric. It was quite surreal but beautiful at that time. So it was kind of nice time to be in New York, even though all our friends said, "Are you going to New York? It's only been a couple of months since 9/11. Aren't you scared?" It's like, why? How are you getting there? Flying. Flying? You're flying? Oh my God. People were insane at that time about panic. Oh my God, you can't ride an airplane not after 9/11 happened in September. Yeah, you can. And of course, soon people began to realize, yeah, you can. Otherwise, the terrorists win. Yeah, we have to live our lives. So we were, totally in with that. But you could still smell the ash, and some of the smell was, sometimes they said, "What is that smell?" And it's like, well, that particular weird odor that's like the smell of, it smells like cremains. That's kind of creepy, but it's true. Oh, hello, Lenny's here. Hello, Lenny. Lenny Wise, the dancing clown cat. I found out this morning that they had a clown named Lenny Wise at Horror Nights in Singapore last year. It made me laugh. But getting back to that. So, yeah, we were in New York City in 2014, and we're right underneath the Freedom Tower. So I thought that was kind of, oh my God, beautiful. And we went and we got our license and by coincidence, it's actually pure coincidence, Bill bought this shirt for me. It says, the New York City heart on the back. It reads, "I got married in New York City." I was thinner 6 years ago, so it's a little tight on me now. Looks like a Simon Cowell T-shirt. A little too tight. And he just thought we are going to do the thing at the clerk's office. You get the license on the 23rd. On the 24th, we'd go back to get the ceremony and be officially married. 20 years from when he first put a ring on my finger. But I thought about it, and Bill was Jewish. something that I'm not sure if people knew that, but and I said, why don't we get a rabbi? Why don't we do a wedding? And he said, oh, really? You wouldn't mind? I said, of course not. It'd have to be a Reform rabbi because it's gay marriage, and secondly, I'm not Jewish, so that could be an issue. With the Orthodox wouldn't marry a man and a woman if one of them wasn't Jewish, unless one of them converted, depending on the There's an old joke. You get 5 Jews, you get 6 opinions, but especially if it's rabbis over theological issues, they're going to argue all day long. But they don't kill each other over it. They just disagree and agree to disagree, which is nice. They don't have anything like Protestant reformations and counter reformations. But anyway, so we found, I think her name was Jill Houseman, and she's the rabbi of the Actors Temple in Midtown Manhattan, and she was delighted to do it. And so that's who did we had a Jewish wedding, April 24th, 2014. So we were married for over 5 years, legally, but we were together for, as far as I was concerned, married from the first time he put the ring on my finger back in, and got a new one. We bought him and he bought me the Cartier Trinity band, and I've been wearing that since April 2014. And that was, so we were legally married, and I had the document to prove it, but still, bureaucracy, insanity, just trying, still not done with all the red tape, but at least I can get in the apartment now. Oh, it's just been a struggle in the aftermath for all kinds, not just, and on top of that, the sheer emotional devastation. You live with someone for over 25 years, and then you're by yourself. It's hard adaptation. I'm still not fully figuring out how to live. I haven't figured out how to be happy yet entirely, although I found some moments of peace. It helps when there's people around, and I'm really grateful that during this time of social isolation, that a friend of mine had some trouble where he couldn't stay with his parents and had to find a place to stay, and I was able to take him in, because now at least I have someone around for a few days, or until this stay-at-home order ends, and that makes me at least not alone all the time. And thank God for Lenny, because I would probably not have made it without her. The cat gives me comfort. In my blackest, darkest moments, the cat is there, and also I know that I will, I must persevere, I must carry on, I must stay alive to take care of this cat, because she must never go back into a shelter. She must have a happy home, and I have this responsibility to keep the cat happy, healthy, and alive. So, thank goodness I have Lenny. So it's been tough. It's been very tough. But, God, I miss him. And I don't know how I got through this without breaking down into tears, because grief is it's a beast. And Kubler-Ross always, had the stages of grief, and she was wrong, because you don't go first through denial and then move into anger and then neatly move into a period of bartering and then neatly into a period of depression and then into acceptance. No. You have a lot of this stuff going on simultaneously. Some of it you never experience. Sometimes it all happens at once. I can go from blind freaking rage and then absolute despair, and I'm weeping and I can't even stop crying, and then all of a sudden I'm exhausted, I can't even get out of bed, and then excruciating pain and anxiety, panic, all of this happening within one 15-minute period, and you never know what's going to hit you next, and it's like being gang ambushed by your emotions, and that's like the worst of it, and I've gotten through a lot of that, and occasionally I have moments like that, episodes where I just, but thank goodness if there's someone to talk to. My family has been so supportive. My mother, who never acknowledged that I was gay for 50 something years, is like calling me, giving condolences. So my husband has to die before we talk about this. But at least it's some kind of progress. But my sister has worked for 40 years as a hospice nurse, so she has all the information for me about how to deal with this sort of thing, because that's what she does all the time with the survivors, and so that helped tremendously. But still, just dealing with the body and funeral services and all of that is, oh, I haven't even had a memorial service yet, because she said, don't have to do it right away. You can wait a while and, do it right. And that's what I've been doing, because I know he had so many friends and people, famous people from all over the world will want to come and visit and do this. I want to do a big deal, but now no one can because of the coronavirus. So I don't know when it's going to happen. Maybe next year. I hope not. But I was planning for something in May or June, but now it may be quite a while. But it also makes me realize, talk to certain members of my family that I haven't really talked to for a long time, like my sister-in-law Faye in Portland. And it's like my brother's wife, and she calls me and we're having a wonderful conversation and getting to, talking about things. And it's like, Faye, I really like her and she's like a friend, but I hadn't talked to her since 1999 when my dad died. And it's like, does someone have to die before we talk to each other? It's like, geez, we got to, meet up, do things, and now we can't because of this stupid virus going on. We all have to isolate and quarantine, but, message, call, that kind of stuff, at least. It's like stay in contact, do stuff. I was hoping to go for my mom's 90th birthday later this year and hope that the family would all get together. Now that's not going to happen because we have to isolate Mom to keep her from getting sick because she's 90. How susceptible can you be? So it's just agonizing, and this stupid virus is making things worse. But another thing about Bill that a lot of people don't know, but even people who knew him, is that his background before he became Dr. Granzik was in show business. He had been a model, and you saw the picture when he was young. He had been a model. He was the Bubble Up boy in Chicago, the soda pop company in the 60s for a while. The television commercials. He was so excited when he got this commercial for Levi's back in the day, and then found out he was only going to be seen from the waist down. He got a national commercial for Levi's. So you can, and somewhere you might find an old Levi's commercial from the 60s, and you can see his butt, but you don't see his face. So it's kind of, eventually he got out of the business because there was one incident in particular where he saw how they were setting up the lights, and he said, that glass there, that glass pane that you're setting up to reflect, it's right next to that hot light, and that's gonna break. That's gonna shatter because of the hot lamp. And the people who were setting up said, we pay you to smile, not to think. And he goes, oh, okay. Sure enough, shatter. He was right, and he said, actors, models are cattle, and they're expected to just smile, not to think, sort of like working for Disney. And he said, no, he's not going to do it anymore, and he got his PhD and got paid to think instead, which he preferred. Still looked good, though. But he also dabbled in, when he was a little boy, what was it called? Damn, I can't remember the word. Those shows, those variety shows that they did comedy and stand-up and all of that and singing. Vaudeville, yeah. He was in vaudeville as a little boy under the name of Billy King. And he did impressions and that sort of stuff. And, he had a lot of clever anecdotes. Once he opened for Martin and Lewis, and Jerry Lewis was like a total dick to him. He got his photograph with Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin, and then, the picture before I took, Jerry Lewis put his hand in front of his face. It's like, how do you do that to a little kid? Damn. So he would complain about that sort of thing. But he had the show business background, and so sometimes he would go to teach, and to him, teaching was also, the same skills he learned from show business. And he was tired, he was exhausted, he was sick, he didn't feel like teaching, but he'd go up there and start teaching anyway because the show must go on. And that was like a mantra. Just always remember, if I didn't feel like going to work or anything, he said, hey, the show must go on. And like I mentioned, Dr. Jimmy is a character that I portray because I have some acting background too. And yeah, I remember that. And so in that spirit, the show must go on. So I will end this video, this memorial tribute to my late husband, in that spirit with what he always told me, honoring that. The show must go on. Hello, I'm Dr. Jimmy. Soon I shall make some more videos for you. Yes, and continue my history of Halloween Horror Nights 25. And oh dear, I have to make all those cocktail videos for last year's event that I haven't got to. So maybe very soon I'll make the cocktail video for Us. No, not a cocktail for us, but for the movie Us. And so until then, this is Dr. Jimmy. Enjoy the rest of your life. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your life, because you never know how long we have. Enjoy the people who you share in your life, because you never know how long they're going to be there. The people that you love, the people you want to be with, they're the most precious things in the world. Enjoy them, even if you can't, even if you have to be 6 feet away from them right now. Enjoy them and cherish them. And as soon as this crisis is over, then when you can get together closer, then hug them and cling to them, because you don't know how long they'll be in your life. And I bid you a fond farewell until we meet again, probably for cocktails later tonight. Ta-ta!